These are the fabrics I've chosen. I'm going to do all in black and white, and I'll show you how I chose these fabrics. I'm going to do the double size quilt, but I'm not going to be putting the borders on mine. So at the bottom here, there's some information about choosing fabric. The third sentence says the dark fabric number 3 should be the darkest of all. So I chose this solid black fabric for dark 3, and I put a little note on it for dark 3. And then the background should be the lightest of all. So this is when I chose this tone-on-tone white. The black, solid black, is darkest of all, and the white tone-on-tone is the lightest, which is the background. So those, you get those out of the way. Now the first sentence says the dark fabrics 1 and 2 should have contrast between them. So here's what I chose for dark 1 and dark 2, and they do have a contrast between them. Get these out of the way. So you can definitely tell these apart. And then it says that the medium fabric should have contrast with both the dark fabric 1 and the dark fabric 2. So this definitely does have a contrast between the two. What I found was that everything, if you put the fabric starting with the background at the bottom, and then the medium and dark 1, dark 2, and dark 3, it goes from lightest to dark. But follow the instructions that they've given you on this paper down here to make sure, because it talks about choosing warm or cool colors too. That will help you. But most of all, let your eye be the guide. So if you can tell these apart, especially if you're doing black and white or green and white, you want to make sure there's a big, you can tell each fabric apart. After you've chosen all your fabric, I like to cut a swatch off of each fabric, just because, to keep everything in order, and so in case you forget which fabric is which. And we're going to be gluing these in swatch charts in the binders. Also, I like to pre-wash my fabrics before I work with them, but when I get them home and before I wash them, I always cut the swatch off. So this is dark fabric number 1 for me. So next we're going to cut the swatch off, and to do that, I fold it like it comes off the bolt. This is the fold from the bolt, and these are the 2 selvages. So I match the fold with the 2 selvages, and we have 4 layers of fabric. And what I'm going to do is just trim off this edge over here to make it even. So I always use my horizontal lines on my mat, so I'm going to put the horizontal line there, and I'm just going to give it a peek over here to see how much I need to cut off. And if you don't need to cut off much, I suggest you make at least a 1/2 inch for your swatch strip. So we're going to cut off a swatch strip, which is going to be a strip at least a 1/2 inch wide. So this is selvage to selvage cut, and we see we've straightened the fabric, and we also have a swatch strip. We're going to place these swatches in 2 places in your binder. The first is going to be on page 14 with the large swatch charts. I had already glued some swatches on here, but I just took them off. That's why it looks kind of messy. But you can pull the swatches off if you're going to do a different quilt in the future. Here's the swatch strip, and I'm going to cut off the selvage, and then I'm going to cut 2 pieces. And this is really all you need for this quilt, 2 pieces from each strip. You'll take your glue pen, and this is dark fabric number 1. So we find dark fabric number 1, put a little dab of glue, and then glue down the swatch. The next place you're going to put it is the charts in your supply list, the cutting notes in your supply list for the size you are doing. Remember, it starts with the throw side on page 2, and then the double size starts on page 7. So I'm going to go on page 7. I'm going to look for dark fabric number 1, put a little dab of glue, and then put your swatch there. Go through for each of your fabrics and put your swatch on page 14 and then your swatch in the cutting notes for the size quilt that you're making. Once all your swatches are in the charts, and if you like to wash your fabrics, then now is the time to wash them, and wash them and press them. And how you prepare, either if you pre-washed or not, you're going to fold it the same way as you did for your swatch strip. This is the fold as it came off the bolt, and these are the two selvage edges, and we meet those together. And if you need to, give it a good press, and so you'll have nice even edges and nicely pressed, so you'll get a good accurate cut. So do the pressing if you pre-washed or not, and this is what it's going to be ready to cut, and we'll be doing the cutting in the next video.